Well, as Islam said, I've known Islam for quite a number of years. I've been in the Middle East for about 15 years now. Okay, and tonight I'm going to introduce you to crisis management. Now, who's heard or is involved in crisis management? 1, 2. What about everybody else? Have you heard about it? Do you know what a crisis is? Okay. A little bit more about me. I was recently made the chairman of the Institute of Strategic Risk Management UAE chapter. Okay, we have events very similar to this, and we invite people from all industry to come and engage with us. As Islam said, I spent 15 years in the British military, operating all over the world. I left in 2005 and decided to work in Iraq for 5 years as a private security consultant for the US military. During that time, I settled here in the United Arab Emirates. I left Iraq in 2010 and started to consult here. I eventually bought a company. I then sold the company, worked for a short time for Highfield, awarding body for compliance, and then for about the last 2 years and 8 months, I've been the head of health and safety at Perle, which is a very, very exciting experience for me. So that's a little bit about me. So, crisis. What is it? When we talk about crisis, what comes to your mind? That's a question for you. What comes to your mind when we talk about crisis? What actually is a crisis? Anybody?
Something goes out of control.
Something goes out of control, good. Difficult situations, good. Somebody else mentioned something? Scarcity? Yeah. Anybody else?
Disaster.
Disaster's good.
Unable to make decisions.
Unable to make decisions. Or decision-making processes are difficult, good. What else?
Something human cannot control.
Something a human initially potentially can't control. What else?
Not a normal situation.
Not a normal situation, yeah. Because if it was normal, potentially it wouldn't be a crisis. So think about 21st century crisis. When we talk about 21st century crisis, the tipping point for us in the world, and it was a global or a globally impacting event, was 9/11. Yeah? That was the tipping point where people started to sit up and listen, because that affected not just people locally, but people globally in so many different ways. Yeah? And we're about to come to another unfortunate anniversary of 9/11. So 21st century crisis, global crisis. What types of crisis are we currently seeing here in the United Arab Emirates, or in fact globally? What different types of crisis are we seeing? Okay, so hurricanes in Barbados, so natural disasters, good.
Climate changes, water scarcity.
Water scarce, yeah. So water shortages on a very large scale. What else?
Fire.
Huh?
Fire. Forest fire. Fire.
Forest fires, yes. So again, natural disasters that are massively impacting. What else?
Economic crisis.
Economic crisis, good.
Cyber attack.
Cyber crisis.
Political crisis.
Political and civil unrest, good. Let's go through a couple. So climate change. How does that impact us? What's the magic number that people are talking about in regards to climate change? How many degrees does the temperature need to rise to drastically affect the world? Does anybody know? 1.5 degrees Celsius. Yeah? So think about your own businesses, your own industries. How would a temperature rise of 1.5 degrees Celsius affect you? What about the summer months here? How hot does it get?
47, 48.
Yeah? So will it affect us that much? 1.5 degrees? Somebody's Google mapping. So climate change is a very big thing. In the United Kingdom, where I'm originally from, we're seeing more rain in the summer and very strange and colder winters. Sustainability. What do we mean when we talk about sustainability?
Keeping up resources for future generations.
Good. So what type of resources are we talking about when we talk about sustainability? Trees, good.
Natural resources.
Natural resources. So what type of natural resources? Water is a very big one, isn't it? What did you say, sir?
Land.
Land? What else?
Natural air.
Yes. Fossil fuels? So water shortage. Why is water important? Can we survive without water?
We cannot.
What's happening in India at the moment? The Ganges. Yeah?
Flood.
There's some floods, but there's also a huge water shortage, isn't there? In actual usable water. So, if that continues, how is that going to impact us, commercially and personally? What do we use water for? Everything. We're made up of mostly water, aren't we? We need it to drink. We need it to prepare our food. We need it for sanitation. We need it for irrigation. So the more water becomes scarce, the higher the prices of water, which will naturally impact us and our salaries. So it's a vicious circle, isn't it? What about food shortages? With water shortage, surely it's going to impact food shortage, isn't it? Somebody mentioned trees. Yeah? Now if trees go, what other industries is that going to affect? Paper industry, definitely. Construction, definitely. I can't hear you, sir. Yes? Agriculture, definitely. What about the air that we breathe? What about bees? If bees go, then coffee is more than likely going to go. And then I'll be very unhappy because I like coffee. Yeah? Population growth. So again, the more we grow globally as a population, the more scarce food becomes. The more scarce water becomes. The more we use our fossil fuels. Yeah? So actually pushing ourselves further into a crisis. Disease. If we don't have sanitation, we don't have good food, then we're going to start to suffer with disease, aren't we? The more the population grows, the more disease is going to spread. Yeah? And I'm sure you've seen epidemics and pandemics in the last few years spreading quite quickly. Mass migration. Now, why will people want to move en masse? What would make them want to move? Lack of resources. So lack of water, or usable water, lack of food, lack of good sanitation, disease, what else?
Lack of political commitment.
Huh?
Political commitments.
Good. War? Yeah.
Intervention from other countries.
Definitely. Because they'll migrate to where they think things are plentiful. And that will directly impact on the population there. And then things will become scarce. Global terrorism. Now, when I put my PowerPoint presentation in for approval with IOSH, IOSH did mention, please don't mention anything about terrorism that's not in the media currently, especially if it impacts United Arab Emirates. So when I come on to terrorism in a little bit more detail, excuse me, everything that I mention is directly from papers like the Gulf News, Khaleej Times, etc. Okay? So I'm not going to tell you any state secrets or anything. It's anything that you can easily Google search. Cyber threat is another big one, isn't it? Has anybody experienced any form of cyber threat? Phishing emails, malware, viruses? It's rife, isn't it? Yeah. Population collapse. Now, we're growing at the moment, but eventually we'll go full circle and the population will start to collapse if we don't make a change by 2050, it's predicted. The United Kingdom rains a lot, but by 2050, south of Birmingham will be in a water shortage crisis, yeah, if we don't implement change. But they're global problems. How do they impact you and your business, do you think? Anybody? How do they impact you as health, safety, facility management, possibly security professionals? How do they affect you? We live in the desert, don't we? Would you say Dubai is currently in a water shortage? Where do we get our water from? Sea. It gets desalinated, doesn't it? And demineralized. Yeah? And then goes through various electrical processes so it's drinkable. Now, crisis. Critical infrastructure crisis. If something like that happened here, how would that impact you?
Logistical collapse.
Logistical collapse. Transportation collapse. So would you be able to get to work? Obviously, it does snow in some parts of the UAE, like Jebel Jais, but it doesn't snow like here. Okay. However, we do have floods, don't we? Has anybody lived here long enough to experience the flood of 2008, where most of the main supply routes were blocked off? Were you working here during that time? It was a very difficult time, wasn't it? I remember it because my oldest son was born during that time, and I was home on leave from Iraq. So how did your business sustain itself during that time, or more recently, 2016, where another big storm hit the United Arab Emirates? Were you able to get to work? Were you able to visit clients, to go to remote sites? So how does that impact your company? Do you think about that as health and safety professionals? I know I do. I'm very heavily involved in it at Perle. Do you guys think about it? What globally could impact us locally? So you're looking at macro all the way down to micro risk management. Is that starting to ring any bells for any of you? When a large crisis happens, people try to get away from the crisis, don't they? Like a large flood, people will try to migrate. But where are they going to migrate to? Here, in the United Arab Emirates. Terrorism. Is that a thing here in the UAE? Is terrorism a thing? Are we at risk to terrorism? What do you think? Yes? No? No? What do the people at the back think? Yes. Yes, definitely. Do you read the media? It's a global thing, isn't it? This incident happened quite recently, didn't it? Off the eastern seaboard. Can anybody give me a back-end story of what happened? It was published in the Khaleej Times and the Gulf News. Tankers were attacked, weren't they? Yeah? We still don't get the full story by who, but there was some sabotage. That's what we were told. Okay? That then cascaded to this. The United States were flying a drone, or so they said, in international airspace. Iran shot it down because they said it was in local Iranian-held airspace. Again, public knowledge. Mr. Trump started to tweet that if Iran doesn't stop doing what it's doing, we are going to invade. So we saw an increase in US naval fleets in the Gulf region, didn't we? In places like Bahrain. Yeah? Further on from that, more recently, on the border with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, 10 drones struck an oil refinery. That was a couple of weeks ago. Yeah? Where did those drones come from? Yemen. So why is Yemen so interested in attacking Saudi Arabia? Yes, Saudi Arabia have taken direct action with support of the United Arab Emirates in Yemen to overthrow the rebels. They've also attacked airports in Saudi Arabia, and we've had drone interference in Dubai Airport and Abu Dhabi Airport. Yeah? But a lot of people think that the United Arab Emirates is a very safe place. And generally, it is. Terrorism, for us, is probably a low risk. So I'm not trying to scare you to say things are going to happen on a continuous basis. You need to be afraid, you need to go home. So please don't take this the wrong way when we talk about terrorism. Things are happening. However, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia have a fantastic capability to thwart the current attacks. Yeah? So the cyber threat. Did anybody read in the Gulf News recently what happened to a company in Dubai, Silicon Oasis? Did anybody read the story? A construction company?
Ransomware.
It was actually,
Ransomware.
yes, ransomware. They want $300 million in Bitcoin to be given to them to allow the company to continue to operate. So do you think that that company here in Dubai, Silicon Oasis, which is basically where we are, on the other side of the road in Academic City, do you think that company now is in crisis? They've been locked out of all of their files. They're a construction company. They've got plans. They've got projects ongoing. They've got reports. Yeah? They've been locked out of everything. So what do you think they're doing now? Do you think they're going to pay the money? What do you think if it happened to your company tomorrow? What do you think? Because again, cybersecurity, a lot of people here, my owner's company included, pay lip service to cybersecurity. Yeah? Because they think it's just general virus phishing attacks that we used to see, excuse me, in the late 1990s, early 2000s. But it's not. It's very, very, very complex. As I mentioned, they attacked and rendered the computers useless of a construction company here in Dubai, Silicon Oasis. And they want 300 million in Bitcoin. Why do you think they use Bitcoin and not paper money?
Maybe not traceable.
Yeah, it makes it more difficult to trace, doesn't it? Because Bitcoin is a lot more difficult to trace around the world because it generally takes the bank out of the equation, doesn't it? So criminal gangs, and that generally is the cause of cyber attacks. There are some state actors. There are some non-state actors as well who conduct malicious cyber attacks, but generally against governments. But Bitcoin is untraceable. Cybersecurity tops the agenda for utility companies as well. Yeah? Cyber attacks on utilities and other critical infrastructure are not just on the increase, but have transitioned from speculative to undisputable. Utilities in this region, as well as vendors, in regards to industrial control systems, are now on the alert and taking remedial action. Yeah? We get quite a lot of power outages, don't we? Recently. The Mall of the Emirates, a couple of months ago, had a power glitch. Dubai Mall has faced power outages. Our own show had to go into a show pause and reset all of our systems for a power outage. Is that just a power outage? Or is it actually a cyber attack where people have tried to take control of Dubai's critical infrastructure? Now, why is Dubai on everybody's lips at the moment as the place to go to? What's going to happen next year? That's got Expo 2020. That's going to put Dubai on the map, isn't it? Yeah? And I hope that it's going to go very, very well. What country is going to be having a pavilion at Expo 2020? Lots and lots of countries, but there's one specific country, Israel. Yeah? Are going to have their own pavilion at Expo 2020. So what potential risks could that possibly have? It's things to think about, isn't it? Because Israel and Iran don't really get on. Iran, backed by Russia. Israel, backed by the United States. Yeah? They don't really get on. Iran has publicly said, we would like to blow Israel off the map. But Israel are coming here. So do you think that that will increase the risk of things happening here? We're already seeing things happening. But it's generally attacking oil, isn't it? Yeah? Social media. I'm sure everybody here uses some form of social media. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. I believe the IOSH UAE recently launched a WhatsApp group. Yeah? LinkedIn. We love our social media, don't we? So how could we use social media in a crisis? Or in fact, how could social media affect our company in a crisis?
Fake news.
Fake news, yeah? With the emergence of a very advanced technology, social media can travel around the world very, very quickly. Yeah? Like our show, every single show, we positively promote people to take pictures, but also to live stream video footage. Because that is free marketing for us. But what about if something happened on the stage? That would be on social media, wouldn't it? Now, as soon as it's happened, that's when it becomes illegal here in the UAE. But we're positively allowing people to actually video the show. So we're in a real bad catch-22 situation. Yeah? What about your companies? Or the gentlemen and ladies who work for government or semi-government companies? Do you use social media often in your environment? What about personally? Yeah? Are we all on LinkedIn? Well, let's look at a small case study regarding when social media was used against the company. Does anybody remember this incident? Yes? Yes, United Airlines. Anybody like to explain what happened?
The gentleman was asked to give a seat up.
Yes.
For $1,000 or something.
Yeah. Well, initially it was for a hotel. Yeah. Basically, a group of cabin crew and pilots needed to get from one place to another to then join a connecting flight to be the actual crew for it. The gentleman had boarded a United Airlines flight, sat comfortably on his seat, paid for his ticket, he was a medical doctor, and he was asked to leave. And he said, well, no, I've paid for my ticket, I'm on the aircraft. I need to go where I'm going. I can't give up my seat. I'm a medical doctor. Can you not take somebody else? And there was a lot of toing and throwing, a lot of heated words, and then eventually some security guards decided to get onto the flight and forcibly remove him, causing damage to his face and bruises to his body. He was basically dragged off the plane just by saying, no, I don't want to give up my seat. He didn't attack anybody. He was just dragged off the plane. Afterwards, concurrent to that, people started to tweet. How do you think this was impacting United Airlines? Because those pictures didn't come from the media, they came from other passengers. Yeah? So what impact did that have on a well-respected American airline, do you think?
Reputation. Reputation.
Reputation was business.
Staff is gone. Goodwill gone.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Lots of goodwill. Staff price.
Yes.
Lots of goodwill.
People didn't trust them. Yeah? Because if they can do that to that gentleman, what are they going to do to me? Other people started to make a joke out of it regarding United Airlines now have a fight club. However, Oscar Muniz started to implement his crisis management, crisis communication strategy and made the following statement. What is your take on this statement? Is he apologizing to the individual? Does he name the individual? Not really. So does that, to you, make you think Oscar Muniz, the then CEO of United Airlines, actually cares? You know, he's the CEO of a large global airline. Does that statement that he made make you think, yes, he cared about this incident? Not really. Not really. Yeah? So was that a positive outcome? No. Obviously, other people decided to make further jokes. But the aircraft had actually taken off and they were throwing people off the plane. The bottom line is, it took quite some time for United Airlines to start to try to get hold of the crisis communication strategy. Yeah? So for them, all of this bad press was flying all over the world. Yeah? People were tweeting about it. People who were actually there were tweeting their friends were sharing the information. United Airlines were not giving any positive feedback at that time. United Airlines shares plummeted. It started to affect their sales. Not just from people possibly booking tickets, but people actually cancelling their tickets. Yeah? And they still have not fully recovered from it. Deepwater Horizon, BP, yeah, the Mexican Gulf. Does anybody remember that? What happened there in regards to Deepwater Horizon? If it's not controlled, it can also turn into a negative thing. So what can we learn? What can we learn by what we've just discussed? Prepare? But can we fully prepare? What do you think?
You can have a plan.
Good. But if you have a plan, and that plan's working, then you're not in a crisis, initially. Yeah? If you've got an emergency plan, and that plan's working, and events happened, then you're not really in a crisis. Yeah? Would we classify a fire? We have a lot of those, don't we, in the UAE? Would we classify a fire as a crisis?
It depends.
Good.
It depends
I like that.
on where it is, what is affected.
Definitely.
If it escalates, then
Good. In what way do you mean it if it escalates? Because I like that.
Affecting more.
escalate out of control, like
Like one of the example of that New Year fire in Address Hotel.
Yes.
So how,
Address downtown.
yeah, downtown, how they use the media, how they have
Yeah.
reacted on it.
But they use the media, as in Dubai municipality, in a very positive way. Yeah? But how did that affect EMAR? A lot of people started to sell their properties taking a loss. So that's a personal crisis. EMAR publicly stated it's going to take us 6 months to reopen. It took them longer than a year. Yeah? People are starting to worry about the critical infrastructure of that building. Yeah? Is it going to happen again?
And investors also start thinking about the materials which they are using.
Yeah.
Civil defense also introduced new codes also.
Yes, but that happened in 2012. So any buildings built prior to 2012 are classified not good. Torch fire. Yeah? How many times has that been on fire? Yeah, quite a lot, hasn't it? That's a really unlucky building. So what would make a fire a crisis then? Our show, touch wood, it never happens. But if we have a big fire at our show, it will close our show. Yeah? So we will personally be in crisis. Also, it's in close proximity to 3 hotels and approximately 26 food and beverage outlets. Yeah? And it's open circulation. So that's fire could potentially spread quite quickly and close 3 hotels, 26 F&B outlets down. Yeah? Risk mitigation is really what we need to look at, isn't it? Yeah? How we mitigate the risk. Now, all of you are health and safety professionals. You're very good at mitigating the risk, yes? But have you ever thought about risks outside of normal health and safety processes? What macro in another part of the region could affect me, or how I can actually learn from somebody else's mistakes? Do we positively do that? Do we do our research on a regular basis to get our CPD points or IPD points for IOSH? Do we? Yes? No? Yes. Yeah? But it's difficult, isn't it? It's very difficult to get the people outside of our world to actually listen to us. Yeah? There's a lot of people here who still don't think crisis will happen. In the 21st century, we'd like to collaborate, but unfortunately, business here are still in silos. And what I mean by a silo, that department doesn't like to talk to this department, which actually affects the operation, it actually affects the reputation and the finance. Interoperability is where we should be. Yeah? Collaborating with marketing, collaborating with sales, with operations, with security, to create robust business continuity management systems. So when a crisis does hit, we're still there at the end. Yeah? The key factor to any corporate business in regards to crisis is survivability. Yeah? Being robust enough to weather the storm. Learning pathways. Think outside of just health and safety. Now, as you saw originally, I've got a security background. I've got a health and safety background. I've started to diversify into operations. I assist the creative departments within my show with little ideas. Yeah? In the 21st century, just focusing on health and safety as the only pathway without showing an interest in other departments is further creating a silo around you as a profession. And health and safety, like security, is a profession. Yeah? But a lot of people don't think it is. So, thank you.